as a moment in every soul's life before the rising where the ground beneath you begins to shift, not physically but existentially. Things that once held meaning begin to feel hollow. The people you once trusted begin to feel distant. The dreams you once chased begin to dissolve in your hands. And you can't explain it, not even to yourself. You just feel it. A haunting sense that something is ending, that something inside you is falling apart. And here's the truth that most never speak of: this is the beginning of your ascension. It doesn't look like light. It doesn't sound like angels singing. It looks like failure. It feels like grief. It sounds like silence. Before a dark chosen one rises, they must endure the first fall, the fall of identity. This is when everything you thought you were starts to collapse. The roles, the titles, the masks. You begin to see that most of what you've been living wasn't you. It was a version of you shaped by survival, expectation, fear, and programming. And suddenly, you can't play the part anymore. You can't pretend to care about the things you used to. You can't force yourself to smile in rooms that drain you. You can't keep lying to yourself to keep others comfortable. And when this happens, the world may not understand. People think you're withdrawing, breaking down, giving up. But you're not. You're breaking open. This fall, though, is brutal, because when your identity collapses, it doesn't do it gently. It rips. It tears. It takes with it the illusions you were still attached to. You might lose relationships. You might walk away from careers. You might leave behind entire chapters of your life. And the fear that comes with that is real, because if I am not who I used to be, then who am I? That question doesn't get answered right away. It lingers. It burns. It leaves space for the second fall to begin, the fall of control. We all build lives based on control. Schedules, plans, goals, timelines. But the deeper you go on the path of awakening, the more control becomes an illusion. And the universe, in its divine intelligence, starts to strip that illusion from you. Things stop working. Plans fall through. The future becomes a fog. And you, once so confident, feel lost, anxious, uncertain. It's like standing in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight. No map, no lighthouse, just waves. And for the dark chosen ones, this is one of the most terrifying falls, because it forces you to surrender, not just mentally, energetically. It asks you to trust a path you can't see, to walk by faith, not by sight, to lean into your intuition when logic has nothing left to offer. And in this space of surrender, another layer of you begins to die. The one who needed to know everything, the one who lived in their mind, the one who tried to manipulate life to feel safe. That version of you is not the one who can rise. So it falls. And in its place, a seed is planted, but it doesn't grow yet. The soil is still being tilled by the third fall, the fall of belonging. This fall is subtle, but it cuts the deepest, because it's the moment you realize you no longer fit, not in your family, not in your community, not even in your old friendships. You start to feel like a stranger in your own life. Conversations feel empty. Gatherings feel forced. You laugh, but inside, you feel like you're watching it all from behind glass. This isn't loneliness. This is the beginning of solitude. There's a difference. Loneliness is the absence of connection. Solitude is the presence of self. But before you can reach that empowered solitude, you must grieve the loss of belonging. This fall forces you to sit with the truth that not everyone will come with you. Some people are only meant to know the version of you that's dying. And as painful as it is, you must let them go. Not out of bitterness, but out of love for them and for yourself. Because clinging to people who no longer recognize your soul is a slow spiritual death. And you didn't come here to die slowly. You came here to awaken. But awakening demands space that can only be created through loss. And here's where it gets even harder. The fourth fall arrives like a storm, the fall of meaning. It's when nothing makes sense anymore. Your old passions feel distant. Your purpose feels diluted. Even your spiritual practices feel flat. You wake up and wonder, why am I here? What is the point of all this? And the silence that answers is deafening. This is the void, the in-between, the space where the old no longer fits and the new hasn't yet arrived. It's emotionally excruciating because as humans we crave meaning. We crave clarity. But the dark chosen ones must learn to sit in the space where meaning is not given but reborn. This fall strips away every borrowed belief, every fake goal, every identity that was attached to performance. And it leaves you with nothing but yourself. And that's when you start to realize the truth. Maybe that's all you ever needed. Not a clear plan, not a fixed purpose, but a real, raw relationship with your own soul. But the soul doesn't speak in goals, it speaks in presence. And to hear it, you must be quiet enough, empty enough, still enough. And that stillness, though terrifying, is sacred, because it's where your real life begins. So I ask you now, as we stand here on the edge of the remaining 3 falls, when everything in you wants to run, to fix, to escape, can you stay? Can you be brave enough to sit in the fire without putting it out? Can you trust that your unraveling is not your ending, but your becoming? Because the rise is coming, but only after you fall all the way through.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
There's a fire that doesn't burn your skin but scorches everything false within you. It doesn't come from outside, it rises from your own soul. You don't light it. It finds you, and it only appears after you've been stripped bare by the first 4 falls. When you've lost your identity, your control, your sense of belonging, and your meaning, there's nothing left to protect, nothing left to perform for. And in that rawness, the 5th fall begins, the fall of certainty. This is the deepest descent, because it dismantles the last illusion, the belief that you know anything for sure. You question what you once called truth. You question the teachings, the timelines, even your own spiritual journey. You look at everything you once stood for and think, was it ever real? You might even question your connection to the divine. You might feel abandoned, empty, forgotten. This is not a crisis of faith, it's the alchemy of faith. Because real faith isn't built on certainty, it's built on surrender. This fire is sacred, but it doesn't feel that way at first. It feels like falling into an abyss with no bottom. It feels like being erased from the inside out. You feel invisible. You scream into the universe and get silence back. You meditate and feel nothing. You pray and hear nothing. You reach out and no one comes. Because this part of the journey is not meant to be shared. It's meant to break you. Not to destroy you, but to open you so wide that your ego can no longer contain the truth of who you are. And here lies the paradox. In the moment you feel most powerless, you are closest to your true power. Because power doesn't come from knowing, it comes from being. And when you are no longer defined by your past, your people, your plans, or your path, you become formless. And in formlessness you become limitless. That's the secret few speak of. That's what the dark night is really about. It's not punishment. It's preparation. It's initiation. The universe isn't ignoring you. It's rebuilding you. But you must endure. You must sit in the fire long enough for it to do its work. Most people run here. They go back to comfort, back to familiarity, back to roles that no longer fit. But the dark chosen ones, we stay. We surrender. We allow the burning. Because we know that what's being destroyed isn't us, it's everything blocking us from ourselves. And then something shifts. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, quiet, like a whisper in the ashes. You realize you're still here, breathing, aware, alive, and not just alive but awake. You don't feel like your old self. You don't want what you used to want. You don't need what you used to need. Something has changed. Something has risen within you. And that something is not a new version of you, it's the real you. The one who was buried under years of conditioning. The one who doesn't need titles or validation or direction to feel whole. The one who doesn't chase light but embodies it because they've made peace with their darkness. And that's when the sixth fall begins, the fall of attachment. Not because you're forced to let go, but because you finally want to. You begin to release your grip on what no longer serves you. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You don't need to fight anymore. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to convince the world of your worth. You become indifferent not from numbness, but from freedom. The opinions of others lose their weight. The ego loses its grip. You stop clinging. You stop controlling. You stop resisting. And in that space you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time, peace. And maybe for the first time you understand why you had to fall. Every breakdown was a breakthrough. Every loss was a lesson. Every silence was a song waiting to be heard. You see how the universe didn't abandon you, it refined you. It didn't punish you, it prepared you. And now, with nothing left to hide behind, you are finally ready. Not to be perfect, not to be powerful, but to be present, fully, authentically, unapologetically. So let me ask you quietly, but directly, what are you still holding on to that you secretly know you've outgrown? What would your life look like if you stopped clinging to what's falling away and started trusting what's trying to rise? The fire has done its work. The ashes are cooling. And beneath them, something ancient is glowing. There's a moment in the journey, subtle but permanent, when you stop running from yourself. All the fears, the doubts, the shame, the guilt, they no longer have the same grip. Not because they disappear, but because you've turned around and faced them. You've walked through the dark. You've lost what you thought mattered. You've been emptied of illusions. And now you stand alone in the silence, not as a victim, not as a seeker, but as something else entirely. You feel it in your bones before you understand it in your mind. You've reclaimed your throne, not the throne the world gave you, the one you were born with, the invisible crown you buried just to fit in. And now it returns, not of gold, not of light, but forged in shadow. This is the shadow crown, and it only arrives when you no longer fear your own power. This is the seventh fall, the fall of fear itself. It's not about being fearless, it's about being willing. Willing to feel the fear, willing to walk through it, willing to stand in front of the mirror and see everything, the light, the rage, the jealousy, the desire, the grief, and say, yes, this too is me. Because until you can hold your own darkness without flinching, you cannot carry your true light without distortion. The shadow crown is not given, it is earned. And it's earned the moment you stop pretending that power is something out there. You realize it's always been within you, but hidden beneath layers of shame, conditioning, and self-doubt. You start to understand that you were never weak. You were afraid of how strong you actually are. Afraid of what might happen if you stopped dimming, if you stopped apologizing, if you stopped making yourself small to make others comfortable. Because deep down you've always known, your presence changes things. Your words carry weight. Your silence speaks volumes. And people can feel you even when you say nothing. That's not ego. That's energetic truth. And when you finally claim that, not from arrogance, but from presence, everything shifts. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to convince. You don't need to be louder than the noise. You just need to be. Authentically, clearly, unapologetically. And the world responds not always with applause, but with recognition. You'll notice it in the way people look at you, like they remember something they forgot, like your presence reminds them of a truth they haven't dared to live. You become a mirror, not the kind that flatters, but the kind that reveals. And this is the responsibility of a dark, chosen one. Because once you wear the shadow crown, your life is no longer about you. It's not about your comfort, your image, or your reputation. It's about being a vessel for transformation. You walk into rooms and shift the vibration without trying. You speak and people hear more than just words, they feel frequency. And while you may still have doubts, still make mistakes, still feel fear, you now hold those things instead of being held by them. That's the difference. That's the rise. But here's the part no one warns you about. The rise is just as lonely as the fall, because now fewer people understand you. Your presence can feel too intense for those who are still asleep. Your silence can feel intimidating. Your truth can make others uncomfortable, but you accept it because you no longer exist to make others feel safe. You exist to make them feel awake. And sometimes that means being misunderstood. Sometimes it means walking alone. But this time you're not walking in confusion. You're walking in sovereignty. You begin to live differently. You speak less, but your words cut deeper. You rush less, but you move with greater force. You seek less, but you find more. You stop needing to prove your worth because your very existence becomes proof. You stop chasing healing as a destination and start living as the embodiment of integration. You no longer ask, "Who am I to do this?" You ask, "Who am I not to?" Because the world needs more souls who have walked through their own hell and returned with wisdom, not wounds. So let me ask you something real, something sacred. What would happen if you stopped fearing your own impact? What would change if you fully stepped into the power you've been pretending not to have? What would rise in your life if you finally stopped hiding? The shadow crown doesn't make you better. It makes you ready. Ready to lead without followers, to rise without recognition, to shine without needing a stage. Because you're no longer here to be seen, you're here to see. You're here to awaken others just by being who you truly are. The final descent is complete. The throne is no longer empty. And you are no longer asleep. Looking back, you won't remember the fall the way you used to. It won't feel like failure anymore. It won't feel like defeat. It won't even feel like suffering. It will feel like something else entirely, a strange kind of grace. Because now you can see it clearly. It was never the world turning against you. It was your soul turning toward you. It was life in its most honest and sacred form, stripping away everything that was never truly yours so that what was yours could finally emerge. The fall wasn't the end of you. It was the beginning of who you really are. Here's the secret no one tells you. The fall itself was the initiation. Not the rise, not the breakthrough, but the descent. The nights you cried until you couldn't breathe. The days you felt invisible. The silence that wrapped around your existence like a fog. That was the ceremony. That was the sacred rite of passage. Because only in those moments did you become empty enough to be filled with something real. And not just real, but eternal. You see, chosen ones don't rise because they're special. They rise because they've been broken open. They've been humbled. They've been stripped of every illusion, every false source of validation. They've stood in the middle of nothingness and chosen presence over panic. They've said yes to the void. They've said yes to the pain. They've said yes to becoming something the world can't categorize. That is the highest form of spiritual courage, and it cannot be taught. It must be earned. And now you walk differently. You see differently. You love differently. Not because you've become perfect, but because you've become whole. You don't need to fix yourself anymore. You don't need to chase healing as if it's a destination. You are the healing. You are the proof that resurrection is possible, that ashes are fertile, that silence speaks, and that the fall is not a punishment, it's a gift. You realize that everything you thought was working against you was secretly working for you. The rejection redirected you. The losses refined you. The loneliness reminded you. The confusion realigned you. And the pain? The pain purified you. It melted your ego. It softened your heart. It sharpened your intuition. It woke up the parts of you that had been sleeping for lifetimes. You are not the same person who first fell. You are something ancient restored, something holy remembered. And now you're ready not for the world but for yourself. You're ready to live in alignment with your truth, even when it's inconvenient. You're ready to walk alone if you must, but never against your soul again. You're ready to speak with conviction, not because you've memorized the right words, but because you've lived the truth behind them. You're ready to hold space for others, not by fixing them, but by being the living embodiment of what's possible. So let me ask you, now that you've walked through the fire, would you really trade any of it? Would you undo the pain if it meant also undoing the wisdom? Would you erase the dark if it meant also erasing the clarity? Or do you finally see that the fall was not the opposite of the rise? It was the rise disguised as death. This is what it means to be a dark chosen one. To rise not in spite of the fall, but because of it. To wear your scars as symbols of initiation. To walk in the world not with arrogance, but with depth. Because you've seen what most people fear to look at. You've sat inside the fire and felt it change you. You've become the kind of soul that isn't shaken by chaos because you are the calm. You aren't afraid of darkness because you carry your own light. And you no longer need to be saved because you've already returned to yourself. This is your reward: clarity, peace, sovereignty. But more than that, knowing. A knowing so deep, so rooted, so unshakable, that nothing outside of you can take it away again. You fell, and now you rise. Remember this: you are not here to be understood. You are here to be felt, to be remembered, to be real. And the world, whether it's ready or not, is about to feel you. Because before the dark chosen ones rise, they must endure the 7 falls. And now you have.